Hi, Sagittarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to your September 2025 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Well, a lot of times when we talk about eclipses, and this is an eclipse month, we focus on the two signs that the eclipses are in and the people who have those signs and saying, oh, wow, your life is going to change. But you have to understand that it also affects the other signs of that particular modalities. So for Sagittarius, this is the mutable modality. And so the mutable signs are Pisces and Virgo and Gemini and Sagittarius. And we have eclipses in Pisces and Virgo. So it will form squares to our sun or ascendant. And that's, just like in general, because it has to be within a certain degree span. But there is that theme of tension. But the tension is actually helpful for spurring us into action. So you have to keep that in mind, is that there is something that you will want to do as it pertains to these areas of life. So as the month begins, the sun is in Virgo. For Sagittarius, that's the 10th house of career. So coming in from August, Mars will be in that 10th house. The sun will be in that 10th house. I'm actually recording this in the first half of August, and the sun is still in Leo. So but anyway, this can give you, with Mars in the 10th house, continue to give you a sense of urgency about something career-wise. I think one of the things that could be going on here, if you think about it, last December was during Sagittarius season that Mars turned retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo. Leo is the sign right before Virgo. So think about that for a minute. After all that time, and I told you I'm recording this in August, and I believe Mars is already in Virgo at this time. But let's say it went in late July or whatever. I think it did, like July 31st. It did not pass the sign of Leo all that time, and it was actually stuck in the signs of Cancer and Leo. So you may feel like there has been something that has been holding you back from really going after career matters for the better part of 10 months or something like that. Longer. I don't know the last time it was in Virgo. And that's what I've been saying with some of these signs when it comes to these Mars transits, is that this is the first time it's been there in a very long time. And you may be feeling that, a sense of urgency is the best way I can put it. So on the first of the month, so you have the sun there and you have Mars. On the first of the month, Saturn retrogrades into Pisces, and that's the opposite house, the 4th house of home and family. So there's something that is a responsibility with the home that maybe you thought you had finished. Maybe you had some kind of work done. Saturn can be foundations. Maybe they're not totally shored up. Or if you had actually laid down roots, which sometimes people do during a Saturn transit through their 4th house, you may find that there is something that is calling that into question. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but remember that Neptune was in this sector for many years, and that could have caused a lot of confusion for some Sagittarians. Remember that if you're listening for your sun sign, you do have a rising sign, and that may be more relevant for your day-to-day matters. The sun sign may resonate more for like the career matters, like I just talked about with the 10th house and everything else. Some people even listen for their moon signs. I had somebody tell me that they listen for their moon and their ascendant, and that's more of a Vedic thing. So that could also be, especially since the moon rules the 4th house of home and family, it might be relevant for timing issues with that. So also the 4th house is the mother. Some people say the father, so we can say either one of the parents. You may feel like you have more karmic, I was going to say karmic baggage, but something to do with them that you need to deal with. That is, you feel a sense of duty. And I said to another sign, to Capricorn actually, who had that in their 3rd house, I was saying that with this idea of ascension, I was hearing that the karmic contracts are not necessarily going to continue. And I found that a very intriguing concept because I really don't know much about it, but I can get a gist. I can kind of imagine what it might be about, but it really does seem very matrixy, this idea that we have these contracts that we have to fulfill with other people and be in their lives. And I don't think that that's true. I don't think we have to be in other people's lives. And here's another thing. Well, let me explain that you're going to have a lunar eclipse here on the 7th. And this could obliterate that. So maybe that it's not going to form a conjunction with that, be at 15 degrees of Pisces. And Saturn, when it retrogrades, will be 29 Pisces. So it won't be a conjunction, but it will still be in the same house. So maybe you'll feel like a breaking free from the past, breaking free from one of these parents. And that can be very helpful to feel free to move forward. But what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, and I think that's why the eclipse helps, because a lot of times with Saturn, when there's a sense of duty, that's that programming that tells us that we owe this, when in fact, we have to do this and blah, blah, blah. And this is not to say that if you have a parent that needs help that, oh yeah, it's like spiritually superior not to help them. But I'm talking about when it is something that with Pisces, there can be that sense of victimhood, that sense of being the martyr. And when it's something that doesn't feel good to you, doesn't feel like it's, you might feel like it's holding you back in some way from doing what you need to do or want to do in life, then that could be a sign that you're overgiving, you're enabling, or something along those lines. So going back in order here, so you may feel that you have some kind of more responsibility with something with your home or with your family. On the 2nd, Mercury goes into Virgo, so Mercury's in that 10th house. Could be negotiation with higher ups. You could be speaking before the public. On the 6th, Uranus goes retrograde at 1 degree of Gemini. That's the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So that 7th house of committed partnership. When Uranus is there, you may feel like you really want to, if you're in a committed relationship, you want to break free. And if some of you are lucky enough to be in a committed relationship where you already feel free, you're going to want even more freedom. And that can be something that helps the relationship, even if it's a good relationship to begin with. Maybe you travel separately. Maybe you are gone, you're apart longer periods of time. And you just, when you come back together, you can have like even more sense of togetherness. It could very well be that this is in your 6th house. You may have a little bit of Gemini in your 6th, depending on your chart. And then that would be connected to like working remotely, working in a way that's not 9 to 5. But retrograde means that it's more of the erratic influence, more of the ups and downs or the curveballs that are thrown to you as it pertains to your love, or I shouldn't say your love life, but more of your partnership area or your work sector. On the 7th is that lunar eclipse in Pisces in the 4th house. Another, what came into my mind was childhood home. And, oh, wow. Well, no, I was thinking that's very interesting because a few years ago, I've always lived close to my hometown. So once in a while, even though I don't have any personal planets in Cancer in the 4th house, except in Vedic astrology, I get that urge to go by my childhood home. And probably about 7 years ago, I happened to go walk down that street, and it was on Father's Day, and my father had passed away several years before, so that was interesting too. And I happened to just go by on Father's Day, and my house was torn down. And I'm like, what? I mean, this house was built in 1904. That's not like super old, but I mean, that's where I basically grew up, except for the first few years. And I knew nothing of this, and I was like staring at this. I couldn't believe it. And that's the kind of thing, the lunar eclipse. And it's funny because, Pisces would have been in my 4th house. Of course, this is my solar chart, so might not be as relevant. But yeah, so what happens if you're attached to your childhood home, there may be something that comes about where you're able to let go of it. Maybe your mom wants to sell it and you're like saying, no, let's keep it at any cost. But she really wants to downsize. So there could be something where you're able to just like let go of something that's related to your past, and that can have a healing effect. On the 18th, Mercury goes into Libra, and this is a friendly angle for Sag. By the way, did I say that my sun is in Sagittarius? Yeah, I think I did. I always like to say that at the beginning. I'm surprised I didn't say that. So this is a friendly angle to us. This is coming from the 11th house. So you might be, it's very social. This is Aquarius's domain. You might be speaking to your friends if you kind of like chit-chatting, updating. Maybe you haven't seen them for a while or talked to them for a while. This could be networking. And definitely when Mercury is in the 10th house, you could be like, strategizing with your boss about ways to drum up business. And one of the ways is reaching out to others in some way. By the way, the 11th house is also about gains, which means, profits from your business, your career, especially the career. It's the 2nd house from the 10th house. So you might be thinking of new ways to kind of take your expertise and profit from it. Your hopes and wishes are 11th house. So coming up with long-term, long-range goals. And the 21st, we have that solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. 10th house. To me, the word that came into my mind is arrival. And I'm assuming that this is because it's at 29 degrees, very powerful, the last degree, like a full moon. You have arrived. That might be my title. Because this is a black moon. This is the second new moon in Virgo in a month. And if you're listening before the 22nd of August, please set your intentions career-wise, especially those of you who are sun in, I mean, for all of you, but for those of you who have sun in Sagittarius, this is your, this really is what the solar chart can help with, is the things that you are directing yourself in life, your goals. Not the things that, kind of like you came into this life. That would be more the natal chart, which really does encompass a lot, but not everything. You may have a lot of opportunities career-wise coming up for you. This could happen to you in the month of August, if you're listening in August, by the way, because it can happen, ahead of time. So keep that in mind too. The very next day we have Mars going into Scorpio. So Scorpio is the sign before Sag, and that is the 12th house. Happy, happy, joy, joy. I always talk about Mars in the 12th house because the 12th house is the house of the hermit, the house of solitude, and, meditating, maybe navel gazing. But, Mars is so active, it wants to run a marathon. How do you work with that type of energy in the 12th house? Well, you have to transmute it, obviously. And this is the thing that is very difficult for people to understand, is that meditation can take different forms. Yeah, we talk about sitting in the lotus position and all of that, but you could meditate while you're walking. You can do something that's more active and still still your mind. And so, or hatha yoga, which is a physical form of yoga that has wonderful physiological benefits that can include, mental calmness. The other thing about Mars in the 12th house is it can be working behind the scenes. And this is often when people want to debut something later on, and they really want that time to themselves to be able to cultivate something without other people giving their 2 cents and just possibly discouraging it. Or if you want to surprise people with something that they weren't expecting, then that could be a reason for doing something kind of by yourself. And I could even see when Mars is in the 12th house, traveling and taking a pilgrimage of some sort, where you are walking. There's a place, a famous place. I'm sure some people know where it is. Shirley MacLaine wrote a whole book on it. Camino, something. I don't know if it's in Spain or something, but I love the idea of a pilgrimage. So if you get the opportunity to do that, that would be awesome. And this would be the kind of time when you would really be receptive to it. On the same day, we have the equinox. Where I live in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the fall equinox. And so this is a time of the sun going into Libra, a cardinal sign, and that in and of itself can herald a lot of change. So for Sagittarius, this is happening in the 11th house of gains. So this is the money from business, as well as the house of hopes and wishes, and friends, acquaintances, groups that you belong to. So when the sun is here, you might be concentrating more on social situations, networking situations, or really nurturing your goals, your long-range goals. And yeah, so that's what I have for you, Sag. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Have a great September. Bye.